Welcome. In front of me is a HUAWEI Mate 50 Pro, and today I'll show you a couple tweaks and the tricks you can do on this phone. So anyway, let's just get started by navigating into the settings, and then we're going to navigate into display and brightness. Now here we have a couple of different things that I can show you. So we have dark mode, which finally, congrats HUAWEI, it took you, what was it, like 7 years to add this? I mean, I guess that's kind of unfair, but it took them about 3 years at least to add schedule to dark mode, even though every other phone had it for past 5 years, or not 5, but like, about 5 years maybe, give or take maybe a year. But here finally, on the Mate 50 Pro, we finally get it. So anyway, if you're the type of person that prefers your dark mode in schedule, so for instance during the nighttime you have it in dark mode and during the daytime it's in light mode, you can finally do this here. Congrats! Nice! Anyway, so that's one way to obviously enable it, but you also can just toggle it off and have it enabled all day. Also enable the permanent dark mode if that is something that you want. Now dark mode does extend to default applications, so if I close this, you can see dialers included, messages, browser, and settings, photos. So yeah, a bunch of applications will be in this mode. Let's go back into the settings. I'm gonna turn off the dark mode just because I honestly prefer it in light mode when I'm recording. There we go. And we can go back and we can now scroll down even lower, and we'll have screen resolution, which is set to high. Now high is basically 1212 by 2616 pixels. So we have also a couple other options like low or smart resolutions, which will automatically adjust screen resolution to save power. Now this option probably will be the best because it will utilize both of them depending on what you're viewing and what the screen actually needs to display. Now I'm gonna actually also check this. I'm interested if I can see some kind of pixels. Honestly, I can't really tell a difference. I mean, after all, the panel is still higher resolution than it's displaying, so it bins it down. So I assume seeing pixelations might be still difficult. But just to go over these three options, high is basically the highest resolution. Low is a lower resolution that will preserve a little bit of the battery, while smart resolution utilizes both of them at the same time to give you best fidelity and best battery life at the same time. Now, best battery life will most likely not be better than low, so that is something to keep in mind. Which I'll stick with smart resolution right here. Now, going back to the display, we had one more thing, which is screen refresh rate. Again, it's set to high. I recommend changing it to dynamic if that is not set by default. For everybody who wants to have high refresh rate on your display but still, well, obviously have a little bit better battery life, high will run permanently in 120 Hz even when the screen isn't moving like right now, which will drain more of your battery life because it requires more energy to keep on doing this. Now, while standard will give you choppy experience, the typical 60 frames per second experience like phones used to have in like a couple years back, even not that far ago, it will also preserve the most amount of battery. High just gives you the most amount of frames, doesn't care about battery life. Dynamic utilizes both of them to give you decent frame rate when you need it, and then also prioritizes battery life when you don't. And the way it defines if you need it or you don't is if an image is stationary like this one, it would switch to 60 or maybe even less. Display, okay, doesn't even tell me if it drops below 60, and it's HUAWEI, so I can't check it because they decided to remove the refresh rate settings from developer options, so I can't tell you if it drops below 60 frames. So just for that, I'm gonna give them the benefit of the doubt and say that when the image is stationary, it could run at something like 30 frames. So it's a guess, which is based on basically nothing. So take that with a grain of salt. It could be running at 60 or it could be running at 1 Hz. I have no clue. Now the lower the refresh rate is when you're not doing anything like this, the better. So that's kind of why I'm mentioning this. Anyway, let's move over to the next thing. So next thing that I want to show you is the gesture navigation, and I'm trying to figure out where it is. Not here. There we go. So it's under System and Settings and System Navigation. And here we will have the gesture navigation. You can toggle it on. The first time around it always gives us the stupid tutorial, like we have no idea how to use them. If you already know, you can just press on the X, close it off and call it a day. If you never used it before, you can just go through it. It's an interactive guide, which might be a little bit hard. Yep, there we go. It's hard for me because I actually have a tempered glass right here that is flat while the edges are curved, so it makes it a little bit more challenging to utilize this. But obviously without this, with the pre-installed protective layer that is on the display, you won't have that problem, and swiping from sides is probably one of the better things with the curved display. But apart from that, we also have the swipe up to go to home, just a quick swipe up, and then swipe up and hold to go to recent. And there we go. There we go. Now moving on to another thing, which will be gestures, which I believe were located in accessibility and features. Or not. Let me quickly make sure. I'm gonna just search for it. These all refer to just the gesture navigation, which I enabled. There is also, oh, there we go, it's in accessibility features, shortcuts and gestures. That's why I didn't see it. Is that it? Yep. So we have a couple different things right here, which can go over. So as an example, we have a wake screen, raise the phone or tap twice on the screen to wake it up. So both of these options are enabled by default. Now, personally, it does kind of annoy me whenever I just touch the phone and it wakes up. So I would probably disable the raise to wake. I personally don't like it, but if you are the type of person that likes it, keep it on or enable it if it's turned off by default. We also have a record screen, so we have knock twice on the screen. We do have the knuckle gestures right here that Huawei implemented, I believe, in like the Mate 20 series. So that's a screenshot. I guess I have to use 2 knuckles. There we go. So pretty simple, and obviously you've seen the take screenshot with just a 1 knuckle knock. One more thing. If you also experience some of these gestures launching when you're not trying to use them, for instance, it mistakes sometimes your finger as a knuckle. And there is, I believe, this option. Just grab it. Come on, you literally just did it. So, nope, that's not what I wanted. I don't know if they still keep it, but before there was the split screen, so you just do like a swipe and it would do a quick split screen, but it seems like it's not a thing anymore. But for me personally, I used to have a Mate 20 Pro which had these gestures as well, and sometimes when I would just press my finger to the display and start like dragging it, it confused it with a knuckle. I might be skinny, but I don't think I'm that skinny. So you could turn off some of them if they trigger for no reason. Now anyway, let's move over to next thing, which is home screen and wallpaper. Now this is actually done pretty nicely. Huawei decided to include all the customizations of your phone in single place. So we have things like icons, wallpapers, always on display, magazine unlock if you use that. If you don't worry about it. And then below that we have also home screen settings, which will include layout. So if you want to have a bigger layout or more tightly packed one, you can change it right here, which is something that I personally like. So there we go. for some reason closed it. There we go. So let's get back in here. And we also have the home screen style. I believe by default we have it set to standard, but I might be wrong. If it's set to standard, which is the most stupid name ever, I understand that they're trying to mimic Apple and literally everything that they do, but believe me, this is not Apple. Just because it costs as much doesn't mean it is one, and it's still running. I'm pretty sure this device is running on Android, which standard for Android would be the app drawer. Come on, Huawei. Come on, it's not that complicated. Just because you want to pretend you're Apple doesn't mean you do it successfully. So there we go. You can change it to app drawer if that is something that you want. I personally prefer an app drawer rather than have my all my apps smack in the middle of my home screen, like I'm a just Apple user. Now keep in mind that they are a little bit behind when copying Apple, so they copied the idea of having all your apps smack in the middle of the home screen, but they kind of forgot that Apple nowadays has this thing. This library, which has categorized apps, so you don't actually have to have them all on the home screen. So they're a little bit behind here. Not only do they copy it, they don't copy it fully, which is just baffling. So I would recommend switching to app drawer, which will give you the pull out the drawer, suggested apps you have at the top, and then all the apps below that are sorted alphabetically. And obviously you can grab any kind of app from here by just holding it and then dragging it to your home screen if you want to have it visible on the main page or maybe any other page. So that is something that I would recommend utilizing right here. Now with that being said, if you found this very helpful, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and thanks for watching.